Well, hello, everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to our CentreCourt special event, Handicapping Your MBA Odds with, of course, Sandy Kreisberg.
Hola, everybody. Hello, shalom, and via con Dios, which is appropriate because we're
Yes, indeed.
hopscotching the world for candidates. Tell
Totally.
us
We are
about
going
it,
to
John.
talk about four different candidates, one from India, one from Nairobi, one from Peru, one from Brazil. So we are literally going around the world with these profiles, and we're going to go one by one. We'll introduce the first candidate is Vikram. He's from India. His target schools are Wharton, Columbia, Tuck, Duke, Kellogg, and Darden. He has a very impressive Gmat score of 760 and an equally impressive grade point average of 4.0. He's currently an auditor with Deloitte & Touche with over 2.5 years of experience in India for Deloitte. And he also has had 6 months of experience in audit at Ernst & Young. His current title is assistant manager. Now, Sandy, that 760 makes you stand up tall right away, right?
760 is good. The 4, I'm assuming, is good. As I read the dates, he's kind of had a split career. He's now getting a postgraduate degree at his undergraduate university, Amity, or Amity, is that the way you say it? In
Amity, I think.
Amity, and he's a 2016 graduate from the University of Delhi, and he works for Deloitte & Touche in audit. Audit, this is the dirty little secret. Audit is the less prestigious part for admissions committees of the big four of Deloitte & Touche, on the theory that it's just less selective to get a job there. But he's done everything. Everything about this guy is real solid, including many leadership roles at Deloitte. With the 760, which is a powerhouse number, man, I think this guy can get in. I think this guy can get into all these schools. He can get into Darden and Kellogg and Duke in a walk, and Tuck applies an extra sniff test whether you're one of their type, and I think this guy could also get into Wharton. So I'd say things are looking good for this guy.
Yeah, and he also received an accelerated promotion to senior auditor. He's led a 5-member team as an acting senior on an important assignment. And here's the other interesting thing to me. I mean, we know, and we've said this over and over again, Sandy, that male Indians are in the most oversubscribed portion of the applicant pool. But in this case, we're not talking about another software engineer who's working in IT. So that gives him a huge advantage, don't you think?
It might, yeah. Male Indians are a big bucket. They're frequently software engineers, and this guy has had experiences that separate him out from that. So for a male Indian, this guy is strong.
Yeah, and going back to what you said about obviously being on the accounting side of the big accounting firm is not as sexy to an admissions official as a consulting might be. However, in India, this could be a different story, because I would think that these are very selective jobs in India, more selective than they would be in the US. And so being an auditor at Deloitte and at Ernst & Young, in India, it might be a very big deal and a very hard job to get. You have to really excel.
Yeah, he's had some selective victories, and his extracurricular, something that I usually don't think all that much about. He would get a plus point for that. He's working as a volunteer for forgive this pronunciation, the Quashine Foundation, and he seems to be doing a lot of fundraising for them. That's impressive. So he's a lively, well-rounded for an auditor, which is what his role is at Deloitte. He's optimized that out of the starting blocks.
Yeah, I mean, this is involvement with his foundation is especially interesting. He says he recruited over 8 school teachers from nearby government schools for the foundation. He's also convinced over 20 families by literally visiting their homes in slum areas to get over 35 students admitted from these disadvantaged areas near the school in the foundation.
And one thing we've missed, his undergraduate degree is from an institute called Karori Mai College at the University of Delhi, where he had a Bachelor of Commerce degree with honors. I'm not sure if that's an Ivy League school in India or a near Ivy. Everybody knows about the IITs in India. So the guy did not go to an IIT, but
and Vikram is quite the athlete. He played cricket. He's played badminton, where he was first runner-up. He's had first place in the meters races and high jump and log jump held at state level with over 800 participants. So this is a very well-rounded guy for an auditor, let me say.
Yeah, he's that's true. Okay, let's go through this. He's got a chance at Wharton simply because of everything we've been saying. He's a Tuck type, just reading between the lines, given his volunteer efforts and the diversity of his interests. And I think Duke, Kellogg, and Darden, he might just be a natural admit given the stats and the prestige work. So I think this guy's likely to have success at those places.
So let me ask you this, Andy. You're the Harvard Business School expert. You read the tea leaves there better than anyone. Shouldn't this guy be applying to Harvard?
Yeah. I'd be interested. This is file list under things I'd really like to know if I ever got a Harvard admissions officer inebriated. How do they choose people from the Big Four? That's what I'd like to know. And they often go to the Big Four. Harvard often goes to the Big Four for underrepresented applicants. Often, underrepresented minorities, African Americans, and people from countries that are not frequent, that don't frequently send people to Harvard.
Right.
So,
what do you think his odds are at Harvard?
I think his odds of getting interviewed are 25%.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So, and then odds of admit at Wharton or Columbia. You think he's going to get into Tuck, Duke, Kellogg, and Darden, but what about the odds at Wharton and Columbia?
I think his odds at Columbia Columbia, swoons for the 760. So here we've got international student. Yeah, that's true. Here we've got an international student with a 760, and that he'll do him very well, and a lot of do-gooder extras. He gets a plus if you want to grade the extracurricular for his extracurricular portfolio. He would get an A on that. He led funding events, recruited other people for starting charities, and it's got a line here that said placed over 50 children in government schools after they graduated from a foundation that he had a lot to do in funding. So there's follow through and real impact there.
In fact, given that, he might want to even throw a application Stanford's way.
It's a long shot, but it's not insane.
Yeah, right.
If he could
And certainly, you know, 1 in 4
point.
chance of getting interviewed at Harvard is pretty darn good.
If as to Stanford, you usually need an X factor, and this guy's, in addition to solid stats, which this guy has, and his X factor just could be some of these foundations he's worked for and started.
Yep, absolutely.
So he could present himself as someone who's going back to India with the skills and the experiences of being very impactful in a way that Stanford likes.
Yeah, the one piece we don't know is what his post MBA goals are, but I would imagine that it doesn't really matter a whole lot, given how strong this application is. So Vikram, you are definitely going to have choices, we think. And the question is, how good will the choices be? We would encourage you.
This guy's goals are, my guess, management consulting.
Yeah, I would think that that would be a natural conclusion, right, although he doesn't tell us. And look, he's going to be getting into the majority of these schools, if not all of them. And the issue here is, hey, go for Harvard as well. You may as well. You have little to lose there. And we think you have a nice shot with the 1 in 4 chance of getting interviewed. So our next candidate is from Nairobi. His name is Elijah. And this is a totally different kind of background because he has a 650 Gmat, so it's a sub 700. His GPA is very low, 2.2. His choice of schools, London Business School, INSEAD, Chicago Booth, and Berkeley Haas. Now he, however, works in private equity, and he has worked in the past at an accounting firm and with development NGOs. Currently, he's an impact investing analyst. So now I do know that obviously in Nairobi, the average GMATs are very low. So, if an admissions official is looking at how someone performs from a country that has historically low GMATs and they have a 650, will they look at that differently than another candidate? Sandy, what do you think?
Coming from Africa is a tremendous advantage. Business schools are on a campaign to increase. They're always interested in global candidates, and Africa, I don't know how to say this, is an underserved continent. Okay, so coming from Africa and working for a capital partners firm in Nairobi, this guy does what it looks like venture capital in Nairobi. Okay, that's one of the best. If you had to make up an ideal job to impress an admissions committee, that would be it. Okay,
True.
Is super elite. That means that this guy's job is familiarizing himself with the African investment environment, and that's the way he should present himself in spades. Okay. The 650 and the 2.2, there's this, both of those are low and need to be, the 2.2 really needs to be explained. Boy, where did this guy go to college?
It's not
University of Nairobi, and then a CPA, Kenya, and he's got a finance degree.
Yes.
No, the undergraduate is University of Nairobi, and then he went and got a diploma of finance in London, which is comforting. That answers any questions they might have about language abilities. So
he's got a nice array of accomplishments at this PE firm in Nairobi, even though he only started in March of 2019. He generated a pipeline of proprietary deal flow. He's led the development of a conservation impact measurement and management system. He spearheaded the analysis on the debt restructuring of a tourism company at the height of COVID-19. He participated in fundraising negotiations. So that's pretty heavy stuff. And let's face it, when I think Africa, I never think private equity and venture capital. And you're right, Sandy. Someone looking at this resume, despite the 2.2 and the 650, might say, hey, this guy could become a leader in investment management or private equity in Africa, where there's going to be tremendous opportunities over the next quarter of a century. And
yeah, I'll tell you what else this guy is a dreamboat for. Just having this guy in a case method classroom as a point of reference. It's like a lot, Elijah, what do you think of that? And he could, if like an investment idea were being the topic of the day in the class, he could read that investment idea through an African lens. And, professors find that incredibly valuable.
True. Now, then the question is, who can he get over the 650 and the 2.2? We have no doubt he has tremendous value. He's already accomplished a lot. And the issue is, at INSEAD, what's interesting about admissions at INSEAD is that the faculty are involved in who gets admitted into the school. The faculty buys for a higher Gmat and a higher undergraduate record. So oddly, I'm suspicious that INSEAD will turn him down. I really think he won't get into INSEAD because they won't look beyond the numbers. And then I think Chicago, Booth, Berkeley, and LBS would be far more likely to give him a holistic review. That's my gut feeling. I don't know about you.
You know more about INSEAD than I do. I think INSEAD might find him attractive just because they're nuts about Africa, and professors would say, here's a funny, this is a funny point. The 650 means two things, okay? It means he can actually do the work, okay? That's one of the things that Gmat is supposed to reveal. If you get a 650 Gmat score, that is not an elite score, but it means that you're going to be able to keep up with the class. You're not going to be fumbling. And then a professor might say, that's good enough for me. The people who are going to have a hard time swallowing the 650 are the people at the school who are managing the school's rankings in the magazines. And they say, oh boy, this might be a star in your class, but it's going to take us down a couple of basis points, as they say on Wall Street in US news. So that might be the issue with this guy, oddly.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I will say, looking at the schools that he's applying to, I would really urge him, strongly urge him to apply to Oxford in the INSEAD school. And I'll tell you why. They more than any other business school in the world, their MBA program has gone out of its way to attract more African students. In fact, 15% of every entering cohort is from Africa. There is no school in the world that is as active and aggressive in cultivating.
Okay, say those schools again, John. I want a listener. This is real important. John knows crazy stuff like this. Why we put up with them?
Oxford's MBA program is it's a one-year program. It's excellent. Obviously, Oxford is one of the 5 greatest universities in the world, and 15% of the students who come into their MBA program are African, and that's a result of the most aggressive recruitment policy of any business school in the world to bring Africans into their community on the basis that Africa is will become, and it already is, a huge part of the world economy. And it's sort of a bet on the continent. So I would really urge Elijah to apply to Oxford.
Yeah,
Yeah, and if he wants a 2-year program, incidentally, one of the wonderful things about Oxford is in 1 year you get your MBA, and the second year you can get a second degree. So you come out of there in 2 years with 2 master's degrees, not only 1.
Yeah. Also, this guy is something kind of a numbers guy. Like he got a degree in econ and statistics, and he's got a diploma in finance from the University of London. So anyone on the admissions committee, who says, this guy's not going to be able to do the work here, that's just not true. I mean, he's proven himself in university environments.
Absolutely. What do you think his odds are at like a Chicago Booth and a Berkeley, though, with those numbers?
Man, Chicago might be interested in talking to it. I think this guy's chance of being interviewed at Chicago, to the extent they have an interview program, they might say, yeah, they might say, I want to talk to this guy.
Yeah.
And if he impresses them as, if he impresses them as someone who's a lot more their type than someone with a 2.2 GPA, he might have a chance. Because just in terms of identity politics, forgive the term, this guy is really attractive.
Yeah. And Berkeley Haas, obviously, it's a much smaller school. It's very selective. Berkeley is a school that I would think, well, he would be great at Berkeley. The 650 might be a little bit of a problem. This is why I'm urging him definitely apply to Oxford. Yeah.
Yeah. What he's, as I said, the Gmat is a kind of dowry. And so what this guy can make up for not bringing a dowry into the marriage is just this identity politics of being from Africa, having worked in Nairobi. This guy has done what looks like private equity or investment, working for a capital partners firm in Africa. Generated a pipeline of proprietary deal flow of commercial businesses that also deliver conservation impact. Business schools love to hear that stuff.
Totally.
It is so up their alley.
All right, Elijah, good luck to you, and do apply to Oxford, whatever you do.
This guy can fight above his weight, so to speak.
Yeah.
If the Gmat and the
Gmat score and his GPA.
Yeah.
All right, then we have Alex from Peru. Now, Alex, his choice of schools are all European, and it's kind of interesting because he's the oldest of the 4 candidates. He has 10 years of experience in the manufacturing industry. He's got a 680 Gmat and a 2.9 GPA, although he does point out that during his undergraduate experience, he did part-time jobs in the last 2 years. So that probably affected his GPA for sure. He's even a former lecturer in a top 3 engineering university in Peru. Currently, he's head of product R&D at a company in Peru that we do not know. But what do you think?
Yeah, we should have, both of us should have looked this up. Well, you want to hazard pronouncing that company?
Oh boy. Well,
Boyles Brothers.
Boyles Brothers Diamantina.
Which he calls a Lane Christensen company in Peru.
Yeah.
It looks like a good sized company just based on the stats. So he's working for a real company. Boy, how many applicants have you met from?
Forgot to mention his targets. His targets are IMD, London Business School, HEC Paris, and IESE in Barcelona.
He's throwing the dice all over the map of Europe.
And the good thing is all these schools tend to bring in slightly older students than the US business school. So that may play to his 10 years of work experience.
Uh, yeah, I agree. And he's also won the Peru. John, how many applicants have you met from Peru?
Hardly any. So I think that Peru is going to be, it's going to really help him, frankly, coming from Peru. And the fact that he's fairly accomplished. I mean, he's got a lot of great experience and he's done a lot of really interesting things, from raising money for product development from the government to negotiating partner agreements to being in charge of project advising for mining and renewable energy stuff. So it's, you know, pretty impressive resume overall.
Okay, so then we've got we've got a 680 GMAT, which in this case is a comfort to the schools.
Yeah, 680 is,
680 means this guy can hack it. You know,
yeah,
he's not going to get lost here.
yep.
And also, he's got 10 years of experience in the manufacturing industry. Manufacturing is now a hot topic as countries realize, you know, particularly developed countries realize that they've spent the last 10 years figuring out how to make money, how to rub $2 together and get a nickel rather than rather than how to take you know, a truckload of lumber and build a house. Okay, and so this guy is doing the real thing. You know, in manufacturing, that's a real plus, and that's a tendency towards school that the
You know,
schools
I'll
are interested
just
in.
say that I, I think he is best suited at IMD in Switzerland. They tend to get slightly older students. It's a great program. It's almost like an executive education program, frankly, with that, where you end up with an MBA. And I think that IMD is the ideal choice for him. HEC Paris and ISE tends to be slightly younger. I mean, those are obviously great choices. These are four of the best schools in Europe by
Yeah,
far.
no, Switzerland is a good place for this guy. He even, when in his blurb, he says raised funds for product innovation and development, a professional with a network in 15 countries and 3 continents. So this guy already has established a global imprint. You know, this guy is like a walking Switzerland himself. So going to school in Switzerland would be good for this guy.
Yeah. So I think your chances are pretty good at all of the 4 schools, don't you, Sandy?
Yes, yes. The 6.8, the 2.9 is the only thing they're going to have to blink at.
Yep.
So, Alex, one of the things you got to do is explain the 2.9. Now, I don't know how. Now he did that. The 2.9 is in an engineering degree at Pontificia University, Catholic University in Lima. I don't know if they're tough graders or not.
And the other thing is that I think on some level, if you have 10 full years of work experience, it puts the GPA
yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yeah,
Right.
it gives it a little more distance. So I think that an admissions committee might weight it a little bit less than someone with only 3 years of experience.
For a guy like this, the admissions committee does not view the 2.9 as any danger. They just view it as a little boo-boo they've got to swallow with the magazine rankings.
Yeah.
And they're often willing to do that for, you know, for a guy from Peru, you know. Like,
yeah, and in this case, I would just point out that, you know, for these schools, the most important ranking is a Financial Times ranking, which does not factor in a GPA or a Gmat. So I think
wait a minute, we gotta ring a bell here to applaud John's expertise in how this game is played globally.
I'm in the weeds, baby.
Say that again. You're not in the weeds. You've cut down all the weeds. Say that fact again.
Yeah, so Financial Times is really the ranking these four schools care about, and the Financial Times does not factor in either a GMAT or a GPA in the ranking, so it's not going to hold you back. They're not going to worry about that too much because of a ranking, but and the
So the
680
Financial Times rankings they don't factor in a GMAT or what do they factor in?
heavy emphasis on salary and the increase in your salary. Most important part of their ranking. Yeah, and they even factor in things like research. Scholarly research is 10% of their ranking. So there's no assessment of the incoming quality of a student at in the FT ranking. So then we have Yuri, our last candidate from Brazil, great place, and a huge supplier of MBA talent around the world. He has a total US strategy. He is targeting Duke, Darden, Kellogg, Ross, Cornell, Johnson, and MIT Sloan, which would clearly be a stretch school, along with Kellogg. His GMAT is 700. He's got a 3.2 GPA. He works as a supply chain manager at a company called Leroy Merlin in the technology and retail business in Brazil. What do you make of him?
Brazil is a super plus. Supply chain is something that business schools have to be interested in, even though students rarely are, because it's just, supply chain is the unsexiest part of business to a youngster. Your values change when you grow up. So the fact that he's in supply chain and from Brazil at his target schools, man, this guy at a school like Duke, Darden, Ross, let's hold off on Kellogg and MIT for the moment. At a school like Duke, Darden, Ross, you got a guy from, Brazil in supply chain with a 700 GMAT. They almost say, that's all I got to hear.
And this guy seems very well-rounded. I mean, he was an undergrad research assistant at the University of Florida. He spent some time in an exchange program in chemical engineering at Cal State Poly in Pomona. He actually has a bachelor's in chemical engineering, even though he's in supply chain. And interestingly enough, the company that I mentioned, Leroy Merlin, is the largest home improvement and gardening retailer in Brazil and the third largest in the world. So we're talking like a Home Depot, Lowe's version in Latin America.
Right. And he's worked for the startup unicorn version of that, a company called, I don't know how you pronounce it, Loft in São Paulo, which is the fastest growing unicorn in Brazil, reaching US $1 billion in 16 months. So this guy's also been at rocket launches. In addition, you see, so that's a sexy experience that, somewhat gives a glow to being in the nuts and bolts supply chain.
And he interned at two well-known companies to all U.S. schools, Dow Chemical and Eaton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he's got a lot of prestige on his resume.
Sandy, the other interesting thing is to be in supply chain during the pandemic is to be and relate to and make him a great participant in a case-based discussion class.
I agree. And he also, the guy's been to the University of Florida and California State Polytech on exchange programs and research assistantships. This guy is a world student.
Yeah.
In a way I've never seen before almost.
Yeah, really impressive guy. So even though he has a sub GMAT,
the numbers are low. It's a question of low numbers, big dowry.
Right.
Is now becoming a term of mine. The dowry. Yeah, so he's not in terms of the numbers, he's not a knockout, but a big dowry makes up for a lot of that.
Right. He's not going to help the U.S. News rankings for Duke, Darden, Kellogg, Ross, Johnson, or MIT Sloan with a 700 Gmat and a 3.2 GPA, but he's going to bring a lot of knowledge and intelligence about a key market in the world and a great deal of accomplishment on the work experience side.
Yeah. And let me add, a 700 is not all, not horrible.
That's true. We should
you do
your favorite admissions officials.
We're thinking alike, bro. You want to tell the story?
So the former managing director of admissions at Harvard Business School, person that we hold near and dear, once said that I don't care what the GMAT score is, as long as there's a 7 in front of it.
As long as there's a 7 in front of it, yes. That was said by D. Leopold, Sandy's secret Valentine.
Now let's go for MIT Sloan first, because obviously that's going to be the toughest school to get into. The acceptance rate is among the lowest in the world in their MBA program, and they don't accept a lot of people. But he has that engineering background, and he is from Brazil, and he is in supply chain management, which is something that I think MIT Sloan would respect. What do you think?
The question at MIT is, can they swallow the 3-2? And what he would need at MIT is an advocate on the admissions committee. He like a lawyer to say, yeah, schmucks, I know the guy's got a 3-2, but he's worked in, that's a 3-2 in engineering, okay? It's not like a 3-2 from the clunkers we consider from Harvard College, where 3-2 means, you were drunk for 3 years. Okay, this is like a real 3-2.
Yeah, we Brazil, maybe inflation, at least in grades, hasn't made its way to Brazil.
Yeah, that would be, someone could make that case that this is a real 3-2, not a Harvard 3-2.
Yeah,
at
that's
Harvard. To get a B at Harvard College, you really have to
be a goof off.
Commit a felony or a very embarrassing misdemeanor.
So what do you think his odds are at MIT Sloan?
I don't think they're going to swallow it. I think what they're going to do is come up with, this is always the issue, and I say it a lot, they're going to come up with a guy like him that they like more. They're going to come up with another guy, another engineer from Brazil with a 3.5 and take that guy.
Yeah, and that's the only way he doesn't get in. And then the question is, does his experience make up for that? Yeah.
Not at those places. A lot of it depends on how many other applicants there are from Brazil. And I think Brazil is pretty active in the MBA game, isn't it? John?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Like here's a question for you. Of all, rank the countries in Latin America, okay, by just how active they are in the American MBA experience.
Brazil's got to be number one by far.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you look at GMAT data of test takers, I believe it is. More people in Brazil take the GMAT than in any other Latin American country.
Well, to that extent, that's bad news for this guy, because there might be another Brazilian line. That could be bad news for this guy in getting into like MIT. And
what do you say about Kellogg though, for Yuri? And again, we don't know what his post-MBA goal is. That could be a factor here as well. I think he'd be a great consultant with the supply chain management experience.
Well, he's got this. He was a volunteer English teacher, that covers a lot of bases right there. That means he's a volunteer, and what he's doing is he's helping people learn English in a foundation called, I'm not sure of the pronunciation, Fomare, which helps low-income students to complete their education. If he could make a big deal out of that, Kellogg would be interested. That's right up their alley.
Right.
With everything else swallowable. And boy, guys went to Cal Poly. He's just a global student, and he's just by the number of places he's gone to, the number of times he's met new friends, and he's got a lot of leadership. I won't go through it line by line, but a lot of his bullets under his jobs are leadership positions, like supply chain manager, led a team of 82 employees. That's something.
Yeah, that's a big deal. So
Yeah.
I'm sure you think that Duke, Darden, Ross, Johnson will scoop him up, right?
I think he'll get in. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll blink at the 3 too.
Yeah. So the question is Kellogg and MIT Sloan, and MIT Sloan probably not. Kellogg possibly a yes at Ross.
I think what's going to happen at MIT is there'll be some better version of him.
Yeah.
That's the way he doesn't get in.
So the strategy for him at MIT Sloan would it be a recommender strategy?
Well, that's always good. The strategy would be to find out who else is applying and steal the application. So he's the only one.
I like that solution, Sandy.
Yeah. The strategy would be to start at to start a club in Brazil for people applying to MIT and make sure and say, okay, we all should apply in a year, and then he applies right now, so he's the only, something like that.
Yeah. Well, Yuri, good luck to you. So Sandy, stepping back now from these 4 different profiles, people from all over the world going to, targeting all different kinds of schools, which is fascinating. Are there any general conclusions to draw about the 4 international candidates?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is I think we're dealing with, they all have the same what, John?
Yeah. You got the 1760 in Vikram, and that's the only one off the charts, kind of, and everyone else is.
Oh, no, answer this question. These 4 candidates all have the same one word, undeniable, begins with a G.
Oh, they all took the Gmat, not the GRE.
They're all males. They've got the same gender.
Oh, that's true. Of course, how could I miss that?
So I think an international woman really has an advantage in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been my experience in, that also sound, even though we're dealing with a database of 4 here, doesn't that ring true to your experience?
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it, because all schools all around the world.
The schools are looking for women, and the reason why there are less or fewer, or whatever that is the reason there are fewer is because my guess is, parents don't let women travel. That's my guess. I'm not kidding.
And all these schools are aiming for a gender parity, and in some cases, particularly American schools, they're literally competitive with each other to reach gender parity.
So one of the takeaways of this exercise is, man, if you're an international woman, get your game together, boy. You've got a lot going for you right at the get-go.
Absolutely true. All right. Well, great.
Yeah,
well,
this has been
fun.
Yeah, this has been a valuable hopscotch around the world for candidates. And when you put them up, you do a good job of summarizing their stats when you put these people up. I think it'll get a lot of attention.
Yep. So Vikram, Alex, Yuri, and Elijah, good luck to you. And for all of you out there on your MBA journey, good luck as well. This is John Byrne with Sandy Kreisberg and Handicapping Your MBA Odds at CentreCourt.
Vaya con Dios, shalom, goodbye, see you later, alligator.
Adios.